Welcome to the channel. English epics, goddamn bastard. The passionate outburst from his wife reached his ears at the very moment he entered the bedroom. Shortly after they met, Raymond had become well acquainted with Dorothy's explosive reactions. It happened at a highly recommended restaurant. They were on their second date when Dorothy was served her meal and quickly discovered that the meat had not been prepared as she ordered. The exchange with the waitress, who had brought their food and was about to return Dorothy's dish to the kitchen in exchange for another, was going smoothly until a haughty waiter intervened, declaring that they would be charged for the additional dish. That was when Dorothy spoke her mind to the waiter, very loudly and in expressions clearly unbecoming of a lady. Eventually, the maitre d' asked them to leave, but not before they experienced the satisfaction of learning the waiter had been fired. That was Raymond's first experience with Dorothy's emotional volcanic eruptions. Though there had been a few such incidents since their wedding in the past 23 years, very few had been directed at him. This was one of those rare cases. Bastard. Go to the living room immediately, Dorothy shrieked, addressing Raymond. He had not heard her come into the house, and he thought she would arrive later. Sighing loudly, Raymond paused for a moment to consider simply ignoring his wife. However, that would only delay the confrontation for a short while. It was better to simply retrieve whatever had her panties in a twist as quickly as possible. That way, the balance would be restored much faster. Turning around, he quickly walked down the wood-paneled hallway into the carpeted living room, his steps echoing strangely in the silence. The living room had always reminded Raymond of an office. It was decorated with modern furniture that Dorothy had picked out from a popular Swedish furniture store. The room's eclectic simplicity seemed out of place in the house, but Dorothy liked it, so Raymond put up with it. "What is going on, Dorothy?" Ray asked in a calm but stiff tone. He was anything but calm. He was, in fact, seething with rage over Dorothy's humiliating attitude. It was becoming increasingly difficult to deal with her venomous tirades. "Do not. You dare pretend to be innocent, you idiot!" Dorothy said with righteous fury. "Timothy told me some sensational news about you." Raymond had noticed Timothy Hannity when he entered the living room, but he had never liked the man, and now liked him even less, so he did not bother to acknowledge him. "I see," Raymond remarked casually then, letting the moment stretch into tense silence. He asked, "And what exactly is this sensation?" Carefully ignoring Hannity. "You know that," Dorothy began, her rage reigniting, but she was interrupted by Raymond, louder and more fervently than she had ever imagined possible. "Shut up." Dorothy's face turned crimson, though it also reflected the shock of her husband's unprecedented outburst of anger. "What?" she began to demand loudly. "Shut up," Raymond shouted again. Then, more calmly, "I said shut up, and I meant shut up. Do you understand? Do not say a word, just nod if you understand." Glancing at Timothy, who also seemed to be in shock, Dorothy could not, and would not, let this challenge to her authority go unanswered, especially not in front of Timothy. "How dare you? I have to." "Shut the hell up," Raymond shouted, spitting as he did. "Just shut the hell up." The fury inside him burst out, making his words more guttural than he had intended. Dorothy could tell that Raymond was angry, perhaps even in a rage, by the way his chest was heaving. "If you cannot speak to me without calling me names, then leave and do not come back, Dorothy," Raymond said, with none of the earlier venom. "Otherwise explain yourself." Despite the fact that her face was burning with embarrassment and blotched with anger, Dorothy managed to restrain her raspiness and lower her volume. She had never experienced her husband's anger on such a scale, and it unsettled her to such a degree that she felt caution was probably the best course of action. "Well, if you had heard what Timothy just said, you would be upset too." She blurted this out to her husband irritably, giving Timothy a strained smile. Without taking his piercing gaze off her, and thus refusing to look at Timothy, Raymond asked, "Dorothy, what, for heaven's sake, did you hear that upset you so much, dear wifey?" Though there was no overt malice in him, he spoke the words firmly enough. Despite the tense atmosphere, Dorothy pressed forward. He said he saw you with a blonde woman. Frowning, Raymond motioned for her to continue. Many people saw the two of you having a very friendly dinner together. After a moment of silence, during which Dorothy seemed to relish her husband's apparent discomfort, Raymond asked in a restrained tone, "All right, what else?" Sensing that her husband's footing had weakened, Dorothy pounced on him. "Tim saw you entering the motel room with that woman." She declared this almost triumphantly. "So, is it true?" Nodding slowly, Raymond answered submissively, "Yes, it is all true." His gaze flicked momentarily to Timothy, and he saw that the worthless piece of shit was smirking with satisfaction. "Aha! Bastard! I caught you!" Dorothy began loudly, in her righteous indignation. "Get the hell out!" Raymond continued at full volume. "I meant it when I told you to leave if you were going to start screaming and swearing. So get out of here." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Cheerful chimes jingled melodically through the cold silence. "I think that is for you," Raymond said. Mysteriously, an expression of confusion mixed with uncertainty appeared on Dorothy and Timothy's faces at the sight of Raymond's cryptic behavior. Then the doorbell rang again. "Well, one of you should answer it," Raymond advised cheerfully. A slight smile played on his lips. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Dorothy muttered irritably as she turned toward the hallway to open the door. Timothy wore a worried look, tinged with fear, as he watched Dorothy's back while she opened the door. A short, plump woman burst into the room, looking both exhausted and furious. She squeezed past Dorothy, who stood frozen with her mouth open. Stopping sharply in the center of the living room, she waved a folder in front of her and addressed Raymond directly. "Is it true?" Nodding sadly, Raymond said softly, "I am afraid it is." All of it was verified by a diligent investigator, Mrs. Hannity. "And allow me to add that I sincerely apologize for meeting you in this manner." Frowning angrily, Vera Hannity replied, "No. I am the one who should apologize that we had to meet like this." Then she turned to face her husband, now visibly shrinking. Timothy. Extending her arm and pointing at him with a rigid finger, she commanded, "Get your ass home right now. We are going to have a come-to-Jesus meeting, and you are definitely not going to enjoy it. Now move." The smirk had long since vanished from his face. He stared at the floor, avoiding eye contact with his wife. "Yes, dear. I can explain. Do not you dare call me dear. And you will explain. A whole damn lot. Now get out." Shoulders slumped, Timothy Hannity shuffled toward the door, not daring to look at Dorothy. Vera Hannity followed him but stopped beside Dorothy, and with a scornful look, sharply spat, "Adulteress." Dorothy slowly closed the front door, reflecting on what had just happened. How had everything turned so awkward? Her husband. He did it. "You bastard. You deceived me. You even confessed to it. I am going to take everything you have, and everything you care about. You are just. I never confessed to anything inappropriate. What I did confess to was being seen with a blonde woman, when we had dinner together, and when I walked her to a motel room. But you see, Dorothy, she is not just a woman. She is a private investigator whom I hired in Atlanta. She has been following you and Timothy from time to time for 2 months. During that time, she gathered a great deal of evidence. When we met, it was so she could hand me what she had collected. And to explain a few things, see, her husband is an attorney and, incidentally, my divorce lawyer. By the time Timothy followed me, we had already completed the investigation. When he saw me at the motel, I was about to meet her husband, who had accompanied her here. So why would I care if your Timothy saw me with her? He heard Dorothy let out a gasp of pain as he explained the situation with surprising calm. Now, as for you, the house will remain mine, since I owned it outright long before I met you. We both keep our respective 401ks. The savings and checking accounts have been largely depleted on monthly bills, our daughter's college tuition, and, do not forget, the services of the private investigator. Those people do not come cheap. After a moment of thought, he added, And also my attorney. Of course, I had to pay him too. He looked at his wife and saw that her face had twisted into an unpleasant grimace, as if she were in pain. Oh, do not worry. I have not left you completely without means to live. There is enough money in your checking account to cover the services of a divorce attorney, and even to pay for housing. Her grimace turned into a flowing stream, and then her face took on an ugly expression as she began to wail. I am so sorry. Forgive me. Please, Raymond. I did not mean anything like that. Please. Forgive me. I will change. I promise. I will. I really will. Please. Oh, please. Snot began to run from her nose, and her broken heart filled her eyes with an unrelenting stream of tears. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I beg you, forgive me. Unmoved by her apparent remorse, Raymond spoke loudly, overpowering her mournful cries. If you and Timothy had simply come home at the usual later time, everything would have been in place. But since you arrived early, it threw us off schedule. In any case, your suitcases are packed and ready. They are in the hall closet. The furniture, quickly glancing around, Raymond continued. You can keep the furniture. I never liked it anyway. But since you liked it, I put up with it. So yes, take it all. Anything you want. I am going to renovate every room. What had sustained? Dorothy for so many years finally failed her. Her wailing grew louder and more desperate as her future ex-husband calmly explained the division of their property. As if he did not care. The fact that he admitted he had never liked the furniture hurt her more than the fact that he had found out about the affair. Then the doorbell rang again. That must be for you, so you had better answer it, Raymond said, with a satisfied tone, pulling the suitcases from the wardrobe. Sobbing loudly, her face smeared with snot and tears, she automatically opened the door. A tall gentleman appeared surprised to see her in such a state, but without wasting a second he asked, Are you Dorothy Stevens? In response to her slight nod, he asked in a neutral voice to see her identification. What is this about? Dorothy asked plaintively. Fear turned into a growing knot in her stomach as she guessed the man's intentions. Please, Mrs. Stevens, would you show me your identification? The man asked again, more sternly. With a curt nod, Dorothy walked to her purse, quickly pulled out her driver's license, and also grabbed a few tissues, trying to wipe her face. Returning to the door, Dorothy handed the license to the patiently waiting man with a paper he held in his hands. The man nodded with satisfaction, then handed her a folded packet of documents in a blue envelope, and concluded, You have been served. Thank you for your cooperation. Have a good day. Then, before Dorothy had time to react, he quickly took a photo of her holding the papers with his mobile phone. With a sudden numbness that reached all the way to her toes, she watched as the man quickly walked away, got into his car, and drove off. She stopped crying and stood blankly in the doorway, silent, swaying, numb and drained, passively awaiting whatever was about to happen. A few seconds later, her sister Chris arrived, along with their mother. They parked along the curb, but on the street, both got out and rushed toward her. Are you all right, Daddy? Chris asked with concern. What happened, dear? Her mother asked, with what Raymond thought was feigned concern. Her eldest daughter simply stood there, unresponsive. Dorothy opened her mouth and moved her jaw up and down, but the only thing that came out was a soft moan of pain. Turning to her son-in-law, Eva demanded an explanation. What did you do to my daughter? Shrugging, Raymond bent down to pick up one of Dorothy's suitcases and calmly said, Nothing. She did it all herself. An angry grimace formed on Eva's face at his response. Stop talking in riddles. What do you mean by that? Approaching his weeping wife and looking over her shoulder at his mother-in-law, he said, She does not like the consequences of her infidelity. One of those consequences is that I filed for divorce. Really, it is quite simple. Before anyone could respond, he continued. And now, if you would be so kind, please help Dorothy carry her clothes and suitcases to the car. She will really need them on a daily basis. That is why I asked both of you to come here, to help Dorothy. She can come back and pack the rest of her things. I will even allow her to store all that junk in the garage until she, I suppose, gets herself a storage unit. Chris, noticing the condition her sister was in, exchanged a confused glance with their mother. Dottie, is this true? She asked with a hint of doubt in her voice. Dorothy, with hollow and lost eyes, could only nod through her sobs. Her voice had abandoned her in a moment of need. Eva, though not known for gentleness, wrapped her daughter in an embrace, a clear sign of support, despite the mistake that had been made. You are coming with us, Dottie. You can stay in your old room for now. But Mom, this scandal, Chris began, but was silenced by Eva's stern look. There will be no scandal, Christina. No more than what has already happened. Family takes care of family. We will deal with the rest later, Eva said firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. Raymond watched this scene with a heavy heart, but his decision remained firm. He had played the role of the understanding partner for far too long, and Dorothy's betrayal had been the final straw. When Eva and Chris helped to broken Dorothy into the car, Raymond stepped forward. Dorothy, he called softly. She turned to him, her eyes filled with confusion, pain, and a plea for something she herself could not understand. I hope you find what you are looking for, he said. What you could not find in our marriage. I truly wish that for you. There was a finality in his voice, a tone that spoke of a closed chapter and burned bridges. With those words, he turned and walked back into the house, quietly closing the door behind him. That sound echoed like the end of their long years together, resonating with a quiet tremor and sadness over a love that, it seemed, may never have truly existed. Inside the house, now far too silent, Raymond stood alone in the middle of the living room. He looked around at the furniture Dorothy had chosen, and the decor she had loved. Everything reminded him of a former life and of a woman he no longer knew. He realized it was time to start over. For both of them. Taking a deep breath, he reached for the phone and dialed a number. Hello, yes? Is this the Furniture Donation Center? I need to give some things away. Yes, quite a lot. It is time for a change. Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like. It helps new stories come to light.